Rundown with Dr. Sierra. We discuss all things running. So, on this week's episode, we are talking about, is it safe to run with a mask? I know that it's COVID and this pandemic is still going on. And while I've gone out for a run, I have seen a lot of people still wearing a mask while they're running. If they're, at a park or something where there are a lot of people. So I completely understand, but let's talk about it today. Is that a safe thing to be doing? We all know that the purpose of wearing a mask in general is to reduce the spread of those droplets being spread from one person to the other. So I understand that. But when you're running, it's a little bit different than just walking or in talking with another person. Now, some things that I do want to suggest. Now, if you live in a state or an area where you are mandated to still have your mask on outside, then obviously you have to follow those rules. However, if you do not, I would suggest running in a place where you can be outdoors, you can be away from people. So number one, you need to make sure that you're mindful of the location that you're running in. Now, if you are running in a race, let's say, you want to maybe try to keep that distance from people about 6 feet. But when you're running a race, especially at the beginning of the race, it's kind of hard because everyone kind of just starts at the same time. And then once you've gotten your pace, then you can kind of spread out. But one thing I would suggest is even in that situation, that if you can avoid running directly behind somebody, especially if they don't have a mask on, you don't want to be in their streamline. Like everything that they're breathing or they're putting out as they're running, and you're running right behind them. So if they do have some type of infection or something going on, you don't want to be in that direct line. Now, if you're running a race, you're not going to know whether they do have anything or not. So that's why it's just kind of like a good rule for thumb not to run directly behind someone while you are outdoors or around people that you don't really know. So you also want to limit the number of people that you are running around. I know that sometimes you can't avoid a large group if you maybe are at an event, but if you are just running on the trail, if you're just outside, it is definitely my suggestion to run as far away from people as you possibly can. And I also want to suggest that you wear a lightweight mask. You want to wear one that is an airwick mask that you can kind of breathe in. You want to make sure that it's a mask that if you're going to be using that same one that you can wash. You want to make sure that you are doing well with your hygiene in those regards as much as you possibly can. But my main tip, if you must wear a mask when you're outside running, is to, while you're running, not trying to run at a super fast speed. You want to slow down your running a little bit for some of the reasons that I'm getting ready to talk about. You just want to make sure that you are safe while you're running with that mask if you absolutely have to. So don't try to hit your PR while running a mask. Don't try to run your fastest speed ever. Don't try to, be in competition with somebody running faster speeds than you normally do while you have the mask on. And I'm about to tell you why. There are downsides to wearing a mask while you're running. Now, it can 100% affect your airflow because you have a restriction over top of your face. So it is limiting your airflow. Not only is it limiting your airflow, it definitely may have an effect on your heart rate. Now, obviously, while you're running, your heart rate is going to be going up. That's just a natural progression with your heart rate. However, when you have that restriction, it is causing you to increase your breathing, so therefore your heart rate is increasing. You're having to work a lot harder than you normally would to breathe, and your heart rate will increase because your body is responding to that. So just like when you are running at a fast pace, because your air quality or the amount of air that you're breathing in is a little bit less, and you're doing a high intensity activity, that's why your heart rate is speeding up. That's why it's moving faster than it normally is. So when you don't have that same level of airflow, your body is kind of thinking that you're doing that same thing. So it's making it a lot harder for you to breathe. So your airflow is going to be restricted and your heart rate is definitely going to increase. Now, everyone obviously responds differently to all activities and pretty much all things. So I can't say that just because you have the mask on that you'll experience some of the symptoms that I'm getting ready to talk about. But if you do, while you have the mask on, then you need to remove the mask. If you're having shortness of breath while you have the mask on, if you're feeling dizzy, if you are feeling nauseous, you need to take that mask off. If you feel like you are having like an altered sense of consciousness and you just kind of are a little bit confused, you need to take the mask off. If you're feeling lightheaded, if you're having chest pain, if you begin to have a headache, all of these are warning signs that something is not right. So my suggestion 100% is to remove the mask. You can stop. Even if you are running, I want you to stop. I want you to get some deep breath, kind of get your oxygen levels back up, and then you can resume. But again, that tip that I said earlier, you don't want to run at the same intensity that you normally would. So if you're feeling those symptoms, you need to stop and breathe in some fresh air, and then you could possibly resume, maybe just not at the same intensity. So something that's important to talk about is if you have just finished running, or even if you were exercising and your mask is wet because of sweat, or maybe wet due to just like condensation and you've been talking a lot, you definitely want to make sure that you throw away that mask. We want to continue to practice good hygiene. So if you experience any of that on your mask, then just go ahead and trash it. Even if it's one that, you just purchased, just throw it out. Unless it's a mask that you can wash, then you want to make sure that you are using a new mask every single time. Now, why is that happening? Why? Because when you are normally breathing, the droplets and everything that we have is just kind of going out into the air. But when you have that mask on, it's limiting your airflow. So the carbon dioxide and the oxygen exchange that typically happens is insufficient. It's not being able to happen the normal process. So as you rebreathe the air that you are expiring, it is increasing your acidity levels in your body because you have a higher level of carbon dioxide. Now, this is where it kind of gets dangerous. That is the reason why I went through those symptoms. If you are feeling any of those things, it's because of that. You have a higher level of carbon dioxide in your body than you are supposed to have, which is why I suggest for you to take off that mask so that you can get some oxygen into your body and you can kind of get those levels back to the normal levels that they need to be so that those symptoms can kind of subside. If you have ever experienced like labored breathing, more than your normal level of breathing, while you have a mask on, while you're trying to run and do exercise, you may be having symptoms that may mimic a person that has COPD. This is why I just truly believe it is a little bit dangerous to wear your mask while you are doing a high level of activity, a high intensity. You want to make sure that if you are required or if you are in a place where you absolutely must wear a mask to do or perform lower to moderate levels of activity. You don't want it to become so high that it's making it really hard for you to breathe. You need to get that oxygen in. We are not meant to have restrictions in our airflow and our breathing. So I would suggest that if you can be somewhere by yourself, be outside. If you must go to a gym, then don't plan maybe to have such a high level of an exercise that day, just because you're going to have to wear the mask and you don't want to experience those symptoms. So wherever you must work out, obviously be safe. Just be wise in the exercises that you pick for yourself for the day. But if you are running, try to run outside. Try to run where you do not have to have that restriction of having a mask on. If you must run in a gym and you have to wear a mask, then I would just suggest run a little bit slower for that day. That is all that I have for you today, guys. I just want you to be safe when you're running. I want you to continue to be able to get your runs in. I don't want these masks to stop our running. We have been in this pandemic for about 2 years now, so we kind of just have probably learned our own ways to make accommodations in this journey that we're on all together. So let me know what you have been doing to improvise, how you've been getting around not wearing a mask, or if you have had to wear the mask, what have you been doing? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. And we will talk to you next time on The Rundown with Dr. Sierra. Happy running.